Good morning. Can you hear me? Am I on yet? Yeah, there we go. This is one of the best and one of the hardest days for me. I know that seems silly to some people, but it is what it is. But it's a time of celebration. And our God is all about celebration. His decision to reveal His first miracle happened in the midst of a wedding feast. If that doesn't speak volumes of how God feels about how we should respond, then we're not paying attention. Because God wants deeply to be married to us, joined to us, to celebrate with us. The world has this weird perception that Christians are unhappy, rule-bound. They don't know the Christ I know. My God is a God of celebration, a God of joy, a God of love. And though there's real things we have to deal with, it's always to return to the redeeming God who wants to celebrate with us forever. You see, celebration is not something new. And really, it's sad to say, but we live in a country that under-celebrates, and that may be hard for you to believe, but we do. In comparison, across the globe, we have the least amount of festivities that go on, mind you, some third world countries, than any part of the world. And it's sad because that's not our history. That's not where we come from. You see, the Passover is in our history. Exodus 12, 26 through 27, it's the celebration of the Lord's sparing, or Pascha, of the Israelites' children from the wrath He poured out on Egypt. Out of this festival, in the midst of this giant meal, comes the Lord's Supper, which we just took. And it's used in this time of celebration to proclaim to His loved ones what was to be the sparing of their lives through the sacrifice of His. And in this celebration, He takes the cup of wrath and offers to us a cup we're unworthy of, because He wants to celebrate. Then there's the first fruits in Leviticus 23, 9 through 14. An Israelite was to bring the first grain of the harvest, believed to be the best, to the priests so that they may offer this to Jehovah Jireh. Yahweh will provide is what that means. The point was to openly celebrate and recognize that out of the grace of God we are provided for, and He deserves the best of what He allows us to grow. It is to honor the commandment to be fruitful and multiply. And when we do so, we celebrate because what God has done. Leviticus 25, this happens to be probably one of my favorite celebrations. And I think after I explain this one, some of you may go, why don't we start this? The year of Jubilee. Some of you already know. Some of you are like, I studied this. This is great. It celebrates the Day of Atonement. And in the 50th year, all debts were released. And the whole year was dedicated to celebrating the redeeming God who saves us from the debt we owe. Imagine living in a country that said, we're all debt-free. Emotionally, spiritually, physically, whatever debt you may owe, be free. I can live. And in this time, it was a time to rest. Don't worry about the plant. Don't worry about the plowing, the field, the work. It is a time to celebrate. God will provide. You see, that's what it is supposed to be for us every first day of the week. It's why we were designed, and in the seventh day, God rested. And in the midst of that rest, God allows us to see what He has done. I take you to a story that Jesus tells us in Luke 15. It's the heart of what we're talking about today. Luke 15, starting in verse 11. And I'm always intrigued, and I mention this time and time again. Probably my students will tell you this is the story I mention to them more than any other. But it bothers me that at the title of this on Bibles it says the parable of the lost son or the prodigal son. It's not about a son. Any good English teacher will say, no, 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 look where it starts. Jesus continued, there was a man who had 2 sons. You see, it's about a father who loves deeply. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. So he divided his property between them. That's a nice way of saying, I'm tired of living here. Give me what you owe me. Some of you parents know that world. I'm ready to leave. This is a little bit different context, but hang with me. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. He longed to fill his stomach with garbage. This isn't where he's from. And the world has warped his mind to settle for less. When he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food in spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. When his son was longing to be filled with garbage, the father longed to be filled with compassion, and then he was. He was filled for compassion for him. He ran to his son, not lightly traced steps, not ready to shame him, but he ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Now, if you're a guy, this is a little awkward. Am I right? My dad, to this day, still likes to kiss me, and it's awkward, but now as a father, I get it. My 2 boys have to endure it themselves. The son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servant, quick, bring the best robe, not a small robe, the best robe, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger, the family ring, by the way, and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. In the heart of the Gospel of Luke, we have a story of a God who loves us and knows we've been astray. And we come back ready to tell him all the junk we've done, confessing as we owe him. He's quick to say, I know what you've done. I've seen where you've been. I don't care anymore. I'm ready to extend grace and love to you. You got what you felt like you wanted. You realized it didn't satisfy. You came back to me. You are repentant. Here is your celebration. You're my son. We must celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry. And why? Doesn't he love the fact that his brother is home? But when we make ourselves the point of the celebration, we'll miss it. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out. Again, father went out to him. Isn't it good that God meets us where we're at? And pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders, yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. And most of us kind of resonate in that feeling. But I've done everything right. And God drops a bomb on us here. My son, the father said, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. We had to celebrate. What motivates a father to use those kind of words? Had to celebrate. Well, I point back to these other celebrations. You see, celebration is never about the people celebrating. And even today, in the midst of a celebration for 4 students who have worked so hard and sacrificed, and we should honor everything that they have done academically and in their spare activities, what we truly honor is what God has done through them. It is the Father that we celebrate because we see Him in them. And when you see God present, the only appropriate response is to celebrate in worship. And it's sad, so much of our time we miss this. So when you see these 4 individuals today, I don't want you to see just 4 students. I want you to see God present in them and what He has done through them. And this is a time of jubilee. This is a time of first fruits where they're coming and they're saying, look what God has done through me. And we get to say, yes, look what God has done through you. As I'm doing the slideshow for today, and you'll see this, I was taken back by one picture in particular, and it was Mr. Adair on the mound of a baseball game bowing in prayer. Because he knows it's not about a baseball game, it's about what God will do through him, and it's not whether he wins or loses. It's about God using him, God celebrating with him, God rejoicing, and he honors it. So today, it's not just about you or you or you or you. And it's a little bit about your parents and your family and the journey they've been on. Because as teenagers, we know we have a long journey, and sometimes we go off the journey and we must come back to mom and dad and say, I've done a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And mom and dad are ready to say, it's time to celebrate. We're ready to rejoice. Because they too have been children. They too have gone through that path and are still going through that path of walking back and forth, trying to find their father who is running towards them saying, I'm ready to celebrate. And that's what it's about. So we will do that today. We will honor the commandment that we must celebrate. And it's not just for these students either. You see, some of you have missed coming to this festival. Some of you have missed and you've been off the path recently. This room's not filled with a bunch of older brothers ready to condemn you. This is filled with co-younger brothers and sisters who are in worship to the one mighty true God, and we're ready to celebrate with you. So maybe today you need to come forward and let us celebrate what God is going to do, what God will provide for you. Because that God still lives, and He's ready to celebrate. So maybe you hear the call today, whatever your need is, and how we can celebrate what God is going to do in you. Don't feel like this is an inappropriate time. What better a time to give your life to Christ, return to Christ, ask for prayer, than in the midst of a celebration for when God has succeeded. So I ask, if you have any needs, come now as we stand and sing.